We're here today to talk about a very special project that you've had in the works for quite some time. And today is the day it all comes to light. So go ahead and share with those listening a brief synopsis of what that project is, and then we'll dig into the details.
Okay, well, I am about to release Hippocephalus, A Tale of Hippo Hope for Kids Facing Medical Challenges. This is a book I didn't expect, but man, has it been a journey to put it together. It's been a processing tool for me to work through our story, and I sure hope that it is a joy to other people to interact with the story and just get a glimpse of what the Lord has done in our life and how He is a part of each of our stories, no matter how hard, confusing, or difficult.
So what is the book about? What might somebody learn who reads it? What ages is it geared for?
So this book, it's 0 to 100. My friend who has a 4-year-old read through it with her in one sitting, and then the 4-year-old was asking to read it again. So it's a good length for about 4 years and up. But I read it to my 2-year-old this morning, and we got through one chapter before he was busy. I did chapterize it. There's 5 chapters, and if you've got littler kids, you can still enjoy the story in like piecemeal form and continue with the next episode next time. And it's a story about a baby hippo who starts to have headaches and starts to have problems, and his family has to go to the hippo hospital to get things checked out. And it's his journey in learning about what's wrong and what can be done about it, and his family just experiencing that whole process of a brand new diagnosis and receiving all that information and pulling together in that. So it's his journey, and more than that, it's our journey. I like to say this is our story, but with hippos.
So why hippos? Tell us about the behind-the-scenes creative writing process and how you hope it resonates with kids, maybe in a way that lightens a hard topic.
So that was an accident. I was up at my brother's house shortly after Benaiah, my son, had his hydrocephalus diagnosis, and my brother couldn't remember what it was called, and he called it like Hippocephalus. And we just lost it. We thought that was so funny. And we were talking about heffalumps and woozles and Pooh Bear. And anyway, he was teasing with me and was like, you ought to write, what is it, hydrocephalus? You ought to write hippocephalus, but do it with hippos. That'd be so funny. And I was like, that's actually a really good idea. And he then, like, I think it was something said in passing, he called me about a week later, and he was like, I looked it up. Beka, there are 1 million people living in the United States with hydrocephalus. You must write this book. Anyway, thankfully the Lord has cheerleaders in my life that they get excited about the creativity He's given me and push me and cheer me on to use it for Him. And truthfully, I was in counseling trying to work through what has happened with our son. And I had started sketching because some of the parts of our story I just didn't know how to talk about. But I could sketch it, and like weird details would come out in my sketches, but they were such sad sketches. And when David brought up the idea of hippocephalus, I thought, you know what would make this a little easier to look at? If we just replace the people with hippos, because hippos are just funny. They're round and they're fat and they're clumsy, and that's how I feel postpartum anyway. Made it easy to sketch myself. But yeah, it just became a way to still deal with some of the hard things that come with having a child with chronic health issues and walking through all of the tests and the waiting. And just to map out all those scenes we lived through, it was a way for us to process our story. And then I feel like it just became a tool for us to share it with other people, and really for other people to be able to share about those hard things, but in a way that you can talk to kids and it's not overwhelming or scary to them. I had a lot of medical challenges as a kid myself, and I'm passionate about never lying to kids about what they're going to have to walk through. I really want to teach them what they need to know so that they're not caught off guard or surprised. They know what to expect, but also not giving too much detail to where they're nervous and afraid. And I try to strike that balance in explaining these things in hippocephalus so that a kid that's facing some of the same things as Benaiah or dealing with any sort of medical issue, that they might be able to get a good idea, a broad idea of what they will experience in a way that they are armed with those expectations. And yet nobody has talked over their head with medical language that left them confused. It's all pretty straightforward and easy language. And yet it's not too much detail. It's not too scary. Doctors and medical professionals, they deal with all of the specifics. But sometimes for the family going through it, you just need to know, what do we have to live through? What am I going to see and hear and smell and all those things? But I don't need to know all the details. You do your job, you're good at it for a reason, and I just need to know how to get through it. So that, anyway, that's a long way to say it, but that's kind of my
explanation,
thought.
And your brother gets partial credit for the title.
Oh, for sure. David, thank you. Yes.
The credit. All right. Well, can you walk us through your own introduction to and journey with hydrocephalus? Tell us your story, or story time, as you like to say.
Story time. So, I was actually living overseas in Papua New Guinea. My family was there to be a part of a mission organization that teaches and translates the Word of God into new unwritten languages. We'd worked for years and years and years to get over there. My husband's a pilot. He was just getting his sim flights in, and we got the awesome news that we were pregnant with our second baby. So that was just an answer to prayer. We were so looking forward to having him. He was so wanted. And in the course of my pregnancy, I became very sick with something called hyperemesis gravidarum. That was its own journey, but long story short, I needed more medical care than they were able to offer in a third world country. And so we ended up flying back when I was about 17 weeks along, and getting medical care here in Florida. So they took care of me all through that pregnancy. I was in and out of the hospital. And we had Benaiah. It was this amazing, finish line to cross. Here's this baby we've labored so hard for, and he's okay. And he actually had a great newborn exam, looked great. Nothing wrong on ultrasounds. Got him home. And a couple days after we got him home, he stopped wanting to nurse. So we looked at lip tie, tongue tie. We kind of navigated that journey with his doctor, looking at what is making him not want to eat. Why is he not gaining weight? Started getting jaundice, started having eye tremors. That was where I really got concerned. And we went through a couple different checkups before we ended up at the Children's Hospital in Orlando, where they did finally admit him and do some scans. And they discovered that along with several other brain abnormalities, Benaiah has hydrocephalus. So that was a little bit of, I think after having to leave our home overseas and go through a difficult pregnancy and finally reach the end and my baby's okay, to then be hit with this news that my child has a lifelong condition that we cannot cure. We can only ever manage it. And it will be part of his life, his whole life, to continue checking it, to see what interventions he needs at each step of his journey. And it's just so hard to know how hard hydrocephalus will be. Some people do okay, and some people need a lot of help, and there's everything in between. But I had some just amazing doctors sit with me in the wake of receiving that news and help me start to sort out and wrap my mind around what Benaiah was going to need, what we needed to let go of as far as our plans and expectations to be able to give our all to fighting for him and to giving him all the help that he needed, and just even coming to terms with how long we would need to wait to know what he would need. And I think so many chronic health conditions are this way, that it's such a waiting game. Almost confronting the thing itself is not as difficult as waiting to know what will need to be done. And we have had 2 years now of walking that journey of going 2 more weeks and another scan, 2 months, another scan, 4 months, another scan, 6 months, another scan, and holding our breath to see Will he need surgery? Will he improve? Will he worsen? As he meets each age, what milestones will he meet and where will he be lagging? And just the kind of the constant awareness of our healthcare providers that it is a wait and see game, and at each stage we will look at where he's at and we'll go from there. That was very difficult. I am a type A personality, and I say I am being crushed into a type B personality and learning to pivot and learning to hold those expectations loosely and trust that the Lord has gone before me, and he really has prepared his perfect plan. And even these heartache, awful, difficult things we walk through are part of a good story and a good plan. So that's a little bit of my story walking through Benaiah, and I can tell you more if there's more I didn't hit on. But
thank you for sharing that. So obviously this book was designed to reach families who in some capacity have faced hydrocephalus. Who else was this book created for? Who else might be blessed by its message?
Primarily for me. I needed to work through and process things. And then I think not by happy accident, I think just the Lord in his goodness, as he helped me work through our story, used that to create a tool that could provide a script for other families. And I think I was surprised. I was thinking hydrocephalus families, moms especially, dads, parents that are dealing with the ache of this. I think a lot of times kids are a little more oblivious than we'd realize to how hard their life is in comparison, because they're just living it and they don't know anything else. But for parents to grapple with, I cannot shield you from this hard thing you have to walk through, and I would do anything to protect you from it, and to walk alongside their baby who needs help. That is just a very dark, grief-stricken, hard season. And I wanted to write something that said, I see you, Mom. If you are coming apart at the seams, I've been there and I see you and you will make it. But I brought it up to my brother, same brother David, and asked him to read through and just give me any edits he had as I was getting closer to actually having a manuscript finished. And his little daughter has BUR, which is a problem with the kidneys. And she had just had to have a surgery for that. And he was like, I am living this journey. Like, she doesn't have hydrocephalus, but I connect with all these scenes, being in the hospital, being admitted, getting the scans, going through the surgery. Like, the things in this book are hydrocephalus specific, but I related to it, and we don't have that. I think this needs to be broader than just for hydrocephalus. So it's very specific to hydrocephalus, and there's even some good informational pages to talk at a kid level through what is a shunt, what is ETV, what is arrested hydrocephalus, what's an MRI, what would surgery be like, what would it be like after surgery, what would it be like to roll back into surgery, and what can you expect there. Just setting kids up, again, to be armed with that information in a gentle script that is not scary to read through, and it's filled with some light humor as well. But I think that any kid that's facing hospitalization or dealing with medical challenges, I am surprised how many families who don't have hydrocephalus relate to the content, because they do get what it's like to deal with the hardships of childhood illness.
What would you want to say to maybe a mom whose child was recently diagnosed with hydrocephalus or another medical challenge like what you just shared? What would you want her to know? What would your heart for that person, if you were sitting across the table from her having coffee, what would you want to share with that person?
I wish I could trace out the way it's going to go. Every story is different. And I know the ache of if only I could know what to expect, I could face it, but all the different possibilities, and just I understand what it feels like to just go limp, because it is too scary to hope. But I think I would say that the same God that broke open the grave and defeated death, He is the God who's at work in your story, and nothing is too hard for Him. And I would want you to keep watching and keep looking to Him and keep hoping, as hard as it is. And that if you're at a moment that it's too hard to hope, I will hold your hope for you. I had a mom that said that to me. She had a daughter that went through a lot of medical challenges, and she's their little medical miracle, but they went through some hard things with her. And when I was walking through Benaya's diagnosis, she reached out to me and told me, I will hold your hope for you. There were moments I could not. It was too painful because I had to brace myself to function and to meet my kids' needs if what I was hoping against came true. And Lisa did that for me. She held my hope for me. She kept praying. She kept believing for my kid. And that's what I would say is find the people who aren't in it, who love you and are cheering you on, and hand off the prayer requests and you just buckle down and get through this. It will not always feel this hard. You are going to have brutal, difficult days, but it will not always be brutal and difficult. You are going to have sweet moments too. And is going to be a time when your capacity to handle these stresses has increased and grown. And you will grow into the person your child needs you to be. This is a journey that requires you to be brave. But you can do it. You will make it.
Good. I see another book in the works for adults.
Maybe.
Tackled, like the children.
The great mommy hippo sadness.
Exactly.
The long way home.
Stay tuned, folks. What about folks who aren't caregivers of a person with a medical challenge? Maybe they're extended family, friends, or they're a part of someone's circle of support team. What would you want them to know? Would this book make a good gift? Can you share on that area?
Yeah. I think as I have shared my manuscript with a couple of the people close to us, I think the thing that surprised me is how many people said, Beka, I had no idea. And I think that your capacity to keep people up to date on everything that's going on, like, I don't know how well I or anyone else can really communicate all the different things that hit you when you're walking through taking care of your child with some sort of chronic or severe medical issue. All the fear, all the worry, all the waiting, all the prayer, all the overwhelm, the wake of information that crashes over you and you can't process, and you're just in shock. And then there's all these jobs you need to suddenly do to make sure your kid's okay. And I think that especially for people who love people who are dealing with special needs or medical challenges, this book is it gives some good insights into what they might be feeling and what they might be walking through. I think for people who love people who are going through medical challenges, it could be a good gift. Especially if this had existed when Benaiah was going through this, I was looking for anything that would help me know how to say what was going on to my then 3-year-old. As he's just watched his mom be in and out of the hospital, and now his brother is in and out of the hospital, and how much to tell him and how to explain what's going on when I cannot stop from breaking down myself. And I just love that it's got some illustrations. It puts the attention somewhere else. So if you need to cry, Mama, while you're reading through it, you just go on and cry. But I love the tool that it could be to provide a script, because I think even professionals who deal with this all the time back away from what is difficult emotionally and into medical jargon or technical explanations. And it's rare to have a conversation, a gentle conversation that does press into what is so hard about this and still infuses hope and a positive outlook and the reminder that you are not your disease or your diagnosis. Your story is so much more than that. And this is a part of what you have been called upon to walk through, and you can show up for that. And no one would want it for you, but it doesn't mean it's a bad story, and it doesn't end here.
Those are good words. So being 2 years into this journey, when you reflect back, is there anything you wish you'd done differently? Maybe as it pertains to lowering the bar of expectations that you put on yourself, or maybe even knowing how to advocate for your child throughout the process.
I think so many people watched us walking through that and were looking for any way they could have helped me. And I think it just felt like, what could anyone do to help? But in hindsight, there are a lot of practical things people did think to do just on their own, or I think the Lord maybe put the idea on their hearts. And I think I would have wanted to trust their love more and to just let anybody who wanted to help me get through this in any way that they offered, I would have just let them do it and known that it was their joy to be able to provide some relief, that they couldn't fix the whole thing. But, and I just, with that, like, there are people in my life who set up meal trains. There are people who bought me groceries. There are people who just sat with me and let me cry and held me. And then I think one of the things, I didn't have the strategy for this at the time, but I was surprised at how time consuming and emotionally draining it is to set up all the appointments with the specialists and the scans and to work with scheduling. That was something that was time sensitive. It had to happen. It had to be me. There are case managers out there that can come alongside and help, and maybe that was an untapped resource for me. But I think had I known how hard that would be, I would have arranged childcare, even just for an hour or two, so I could focus on getting those things set up, and then I could put it away, rather than trying to fit it in 15 minutes here and there between my toddler and my newborn, and all of the things that were going on. It was a crazy time to try to manage a complicated schedule, especially a complicated healthcare schedule. So I would just say, if there is a way to invite help in getting those things scheduled, or practical help, whether that is groceries, meals, letting someone clean your house, or pay to let your house get cleaned, those feel like, how can I, like, that's such a luxury. It's not a need, but the things that are restorative to you, like walking into a clean house, or just taking a 15-minute walk sometimes, even when things are pressing and you need to get to stuff and there's a million things. My OB, when I asked her, how do I get through this? How did you get through it? She had 3 special needs kids with all sorts of medical challenges, really serious stuff. And she was like, I think I underestimated what going outside and taking a quick walk would do for me. So I think just while you wait for someday and hope that someday things will be okay again, while they're not okay, don't underestimate. I wish I hadn't underestimated the little things that would fill me up or give me a minute to breathe, because you need minutes to collapse and cry and breathe, and then rally and go back to it. And it's okay to not be able to hold it together all the time. Even when you have little people depending on you, you can depend on the people the Lord has placed around you to tap in for you when you need it. I think that would have been I kind of said it like advice to someone else.
No, I like that. And I feel like that's good advice to anyone, not even just somebody who's, the caregiver of a person with a medical challenge. So how much more so for those people in those positions. What is your heart behind this book? Why do you think God led you to bring this story to light?
I heard somewhere, this is not from me, but somebody said that when you walk through something challenging, you're writing the survival guide for the person behind you. And I think like that, it's so biblical. I think 2 Corinthians 1 talks about when we go through something that is devastating and overwhelming it's so that the Lord can comfort us and we can comfort others with the comfort with which we have received from the Lord. I quoted that wrong, look it up, but that is kind of the concept there, that I just think when we have been helped through something, we can take those things and leave them on the trail for the person kind of groping behind us through some of this really hard territory. I had a neurologist, the neurologist that was on call when Benaiah was hospitalized. We had person after person come into our room and deliver more results and more problems and more questions, and speak over their clipboards to us while I'm sitting in the chair 2 weeks postpartum with the flu and holding my baby with his eye tremors that won't stop, and like trying to absorb that information and make sense of it all and respond. And I'm so sleep deprived. And that neurologist walked in and he looked at me and he saw me. And he just sat down, like he put the clipboard aside and he sat down and he looked at me and he goes, "What a beautiful baby." And he took just a moment to see us. And so I think my heart is that I know medical providers are working so hard and they're strapped for time, and not in every story is there someone who recognizes when someone's going under.
Right.
Because they're managing a big load and they're just getting stuff done and they're doing their jobs. But I would like to be that voice that sits down next to someone else and sees them and says, "What a beautiful baby. You are going to make it." That neurologist, I just think, again, in God's good plan, he gave us a neurologist who had an arachnoid cyst, and that was one of the brain abnormalities they found in Benaya. And he was like, "Did you know I have that too? Look at me. I'm a brain doctor." Who knows what he may be able to do? Don't give up yet. And so that's kind of some of the message and thrust of this book is, I want to sit with you and see how hard this is. It's so, so hard. And don't give up yet. You have a beautiful baby and this is a good story. And when maybe everyone is whizzing around getting all the things done, and when you're in a waiting room or in a Ronald McDonald house or just sitting at home in your dark room trying to get the courage to get out of bed for one more day and waiting for the moment you can collapse into bed again and be unconscious so that you don't have to live in this hard story. I want to be an accessible voice to sit with you in that and say, "Me too.
Yeah.
This was really hard and it's not over yet. Well, hang on."
Good. What if a person wants to support the message of this book, but they don't know anyone with hydrocephalus or any other unique medical challenge? How can they be involved?
Ooh, good question. I feel like the logistics of that question is something we're still working out. I know you had an idea. Would you like to talk about your idea? Is that something that you're willing? I'm ambushing you with this question.
Getting it into hospitals and doctors' offices?
Yes.
Is that idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about that anyway, and you kind of jumped on the bandwagon. I was just so impressed. So anyway, go.
Well, my husband works at one hospital and my son works at a different hospital. And so I just thought, I wonder if we could buy some copies and donate them to each of those hospitals. What department would you recommend donating?
Yeah. Oh, good question.
What I mean? If somebody wants to donate to maybe their pediatrician's office, or they're like, what are the specialties where this book might hit home? If somebody wants to just be like, I'll buy 3 copies and I'm going to give them to my neurologist, my whatever, my whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Great question. So I reached out to the several people on our care team as I was writing the book to see, would you be interested in having some copies of this in this office if I could make that happen? And if you have a mama come through that's dealing with something like this and you can send it home with her, a dream of mine would be that this book is on top of the discharge paperwork when all of that huge packet gets handed to parents, and suddenly they're like, "You're on your own," and that. I would love, on top of all of those logistics and schedules, for there to be and here's a story to enjoy with your child. And so anyway, my answers would be, my favorite would be the floor at children's hospitals, or in a normal hospital, the children's floor, wherever they PICU, NICU, any of those places would be a great spot to just, you can go independently and ask, can I leave some of these copies at the nurse's station? And if you've got some parents and kids that are hanging around bored, waiting for their next specialist or waiting for rounds, this is something that can pass the time. Neurology, neurosurgery, those are both really specific to hydrocephalus and all the complications that go along with it. So if you know of pediatric, especially neurologists or neurosurgeons, pediatricians, my pediatrician was pumped about the idea of having copies of this And some of it is he's in it, so that's why I don't know if that's why, but he loved the idea of having copies there as just something to be able to give to parents that come through who are dealing with some of this heavy stuff. So pediatricians, neurology, neurosurgeon, hospital in general, especially the children's floors. And then I would say, I had one more. Oh, I have not investigated this yet, but I know a lot of Ronald McDonald's houses is where people stay, and that's a place families are passing time, waiting for the next test or waiting for surgery to be over. Waiting rooms anywhere where you're just stressed and waiting for something to be over. It's a great idea to place them there, and thank you for your idea to want to give that away. And my heart, if you are wanting to donate copies, reach out to me. I would like to offer a discount. So
yeah, and maybe there might be some folks that would like to partner in that way, but they maybe don't have the time or the ability to go to the different doctor's offices. Could they just reach out to you and be like, I would like to buy 5 copies, but can you distribute them as you see fit, as doors open for you? These are 5 copies donated from the such and such family.
Yes, absolutely. So I think we're going to talk about information in a bit, but people, if they are wanting to give this book away, I'm delighted to hear that. I'm just so excited, and that you would want to be a part of that. Thrilled. And I do have some local connections already who have expressed interest in the book should people want to donate copies. Great. So that would be a great place to start.
So they can really just go to you.
They can come to me. Yes.
Awesome. And where can people get a copy in the States? And is it available outside the States?
It is. I'm so excited about this. It is in Amazon. So anywhere Amazon is, they distribute it worldwide. So Germany, Spain, those were the 2 ones that had come up so far. I have some hydrocephalus families who were hoping to use it, but they're like, but I'm overseas. And I'm like, love Amazon for that. They are able to get it pretty much anywhere in the world. So it's not in any brick and mortar stores. But if you got Amazon, I mean, here's hoping. But yeah, you should be able to find it. Just go to Amazon.com. And
awesome. Very accessible. Very easy. So wrap up question. God has obviously given you a gift for communicating and writing, and it's blessed me, and I can't begin to imagine how many other people have been blessed by those God-given talents and gifts. Do you have any other resources available? Blogs, books? How can people follow you? How can they keep up with the Burns family, find out about upcoming projects, new releases, all of the things? Do you have an Etsy store? Share all the things, all the ways people can follow, support, be encouraged. Give us all the deets.
Okay, so the simplest thing is www.bekaburns.com. BEKABURNS. That's a good place to start. You can learn about me. I've got my blog there, so if you want to see kind of my semi-monthly write-up, I write devotionals. I write just what I'm processing and learning from the Word. We do put out monthly newsletters. We have a great support community that follows with us and has since we've been in missions training. And I do have people that subscribe to that, and I can send it right to your email. Or if you subscribe to the blog, it'll go to your email. I have 3 other books. One other children's book about naps for kids who fight naps, which maybe is all of them. And it doesn't mean that your kid will read the book and then nap, but it's kind of a fun story about it. It's a good nap time story about how sleeping is a chance to dream. And I've got a devotional called One Thing Is Needed. It's a 31-day devotional going through just some of the pieces of scripture that have held me in some really hard times, and holding space to sit at Christ's feet and get everything we need there. So that's what that book is about. And then I have one more devotional on Judges. That's a quick read through if you're studying the book of Judges or going through it with a small group. So you can find all those on bekaburns.com.
Yes.
And there's a contact form there too as well.
Did you mention the podcast? Did I miss it?
There is also a podcast.
Okay.
Thank you for that. The Burns Journal.
Regularly, I'm a faithful subscriber.
Yes, you are our biggest fan. So my husband Cody and I have the Burns Journal podcast, which I think across pretty much all the platforms you can just search the Burns Journal podcast. And we also take that monthly update, both the devotional portion, where I've written up something about the Lord is teaching me, and then an update portion on our family, updates on Benaiah, updates on our plans, it goes all the way back from, I think, before we left for Papua New Guinea. It goes through our journey there in Papua New Guinea. That was a wild time, so it's got some good stories in there. And then we just talk about it a little bit, and good unfiltered content from Cody and I.
Yes,
so,
good stuff.
Yeah.
Etsy store. Is the
Etsy store, yes.
linked to your .com, your website?
Good question. No, it's not, but I'll put something on there on the website, so it should be easy to find. And then in the back of the book, there's a point in the book where it talks about how hippos with hippocephalus must be brave, and their mommies and daddies must be very brave indeed. And it's got this picture of a hippo with a headband, and my mom was like, please make that headband happen, because if I was reading it, I would want a headband. So in the back, there is a cutout of a brave headband for your hippocephalus hippo. And I put together some bandanas, and for the little tinies, like 3 months and under, there's a little infant headband it's black like the one in the book, and it has brave in yellow letters. And I just love having that. And we got one for Benaiah, and it's just a neat little reminder that for all the things he's walking through, he has been so brave. And he is just, again, he's more than his diagnosis. Yes. I love taking it out of the context of like, this is a hydrocephalus patient, and into like, this is a brave little boy. Look what he's fighting. Look at him showing up for it. Yeah. So if you are facing that in your life and you want a brave headband for yourself, for moms and dads, you are being brave. And I feel that you need some swag to prove it, and to gear up for when you're going to go in for that next scan. There it is. So yeah, there's an Etsy store. I'll link it on my website, and it's in the back of the book as well if people are interested in that.
That's excellent. I love it. Well, I think we have covered everything, we maybe needed to cover, but maybe if other people have questions out there and wanted to send them in, you could answer them, and we could do a part 2. If by popular demand, if there is popular demand for a part 2,
the plan goes deep.
But I've enjoyed sharing this time with you and hearing your heart for this book. I'm really excited about this project, so I hope everybody gets involved.
Thank you,
some
Dana.
way. Yes.
Thank you.